2020 is already set to be a huge year for gaming, with the likes of Cyberpunk 2077, The Last of Us 2, and Final Fantasy VII Remake finally coming into our homes. But there's one company in particular who may finally be able to rise from the ashes of a lackluster 2019 and have a truly great year. Now, you may be surprised to hear that the company we're thinking of is Ubisoft, of all people.
Surprise, surprise, it was on the thumbnail on the title.
I know, you never saw that coming, did you? But you've clicked now, and if you haven't missed anything.
Too late.
So, Ubisoft, they've got a few interesting things coming up in the pipeline through 2020 and kind of the general future. But let's just quickly recap 2019's sort of flop, boring, not terrible year, but just kind of meh.
I would class it as a terrible year for Ubisoft, absolutely.
Well, for a huge AAA gaming company, yeah, perhaps terrible. But none of the games were particularly shredded on Metacritic or stuff like that. But anyway, we'll get into that. First one up would be a game called Far Cry New Dawn, and if you forgot that came out last year, you're not the only one.
You'd be forgiven.
It got between 71 and 75 on Metacritic, and most people said it wasn't terrible, just not great. It should have just stayed as just an expansion for Far Cry 5 because it reused the map and a whole load of assets just with spray paint and punk colours all over it. The next one, which definitely was a misstep to put it kindly and an absolute shitfire to put it accurately, is Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which got between 55 and 62 on Metacritic and is just in general a microtransaction pay-to-win mess where they walked back half of their steps that they tried to take, and then it's actually messed up their complete company ethos and they're actually having a bit of a rethink, but we'll get onto that in just a sec. And the other major one is The Division 2. Now that was fairly well received and got between 82 and 84 on Metacritic, but it didn't make as much money as they wanted. So when discussing Ghost Recon Breakpoint and The Division 2, they described it as a sharp downward revision and that they underperformed commercially, which is not exactly what you like to hear from a big AAA company.
Well, especially LOL, since you said shart downward revision.
Well, there we go.
That's more accurate than sharp downward.
A sharp downward revision. But anyway, there's a few really big games coming up next year, and the first one, which was supposed to be coming out in March but got delayed because of the shit show that was Ghost Recon Breakpoint, is Watch Dogs Legion. That's being developed by Ubisoft Toronto, sequel to Watch Dogs 2, which came out in 2016 and takes place in a fictionalized sort of dystopian post-Brexit version of London. And it's very sensationalist. I don't know if the world will really be that terrible after it, but we will wait and see. The idea is that you can recruit and then play as any NPC in the whole game world, huge open world. Every single one of them is different, every single one of them is fully voiced, which is hugely ambitious. There was certain trouble after the launch of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which seems to have impacted how this game might actually play out, right?
Yeah, and I think this whole conversation is kind of geared around what Igamo said about the disastrous Ghost Recon Breakpoint, let's be honest, and them consequently delaying Watch Dogs Legion as a result. Now, I would describe it as turmoil at Ubisoft because Igamo said in October, reception and sales during the game's first weeks were very disappointing when describing Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and he was explaining why they delayed Watch Dogs Legion as a result of the disaster that was Breakpoint from the original scheduled date, like we said, which is March the 6th. And he said, we want our teams to have more development time to ensure that their respective innovations are perfectly implemented so as to deliver optimal experiences for players. So he's basically saying that he wants the games to be better. Like, what we envisioned for this game needs to be better because what we thought Ghost Recon Breakpoint was going to be awesome, and it turned out it was just a generic, bland, cookie cutter bullshit, which is what everyone associates with Ubisoft. And they've woken up to the fact that we all know now, that we all think that the games are boring, bland, cookie cutter bullshit. And I always say that they're throwing in these RPG light elements to try and vary things up, and it really doesn't make it that much of a difference. And we'll get onto it a bit. They just throw in like numbers on the screen to make it look like an RPG, and it's just not. It's not innovations in gameplay. It's just the same old shit. No matter what Ubisoft game you buy, what world you inhabit in a Ubisoft world, the gameplay is very generic and very cookie cutter.
I love this quote. We want our teams to have more development time to ensure their respective innovations. We want them to make good games, but we weren't allowing them to because we were trying to make too much money, basically.
Well, that was good news that they delayed the game and that they've allowed. They're kind of refocusing their efforts now away from just trying to get the game done on time, and they're saying, no, we're going to give them the time it needs in the oven to make something kind of unique that isn't going to fall down on Metacritic to like 55 to 62, which is what They probably had high hopes for Breakpoint, and for it to flop so badly, this was the slap in the face. This was the wake-up call that they had last year, and I think that as a result, the games will be better this year from Ubisoft.
Well, the other game that is definitely confirmed for 2020 is Rainbow Six Quarantine. Now, we don't really know why this exists, because it's a co-op PvE zombie spin-off of the massively popular tactical shooter franchise Rainbow Six, and specifically the most recent one was Rainbow Six Siege, which is massively popular, and a lot of people kind of say it's games as a service done right.
That's not possible.
They've done a great job supporting it with extra content and like raids. I can't remember what their version of raids is called, but anyway. But my question is, who is this for? I mean, there's multiple high-profile zombie games coming next year with the likes of Resident Evil 3 Remake and Resident Evil Resistance, I think that's what it's called, Dying Light 2 and The Last of Us. So where does this sort of thing fit in? Especially as it's only a spin-off. But if they're trying to take a new step in a new direction, given all of the bad stuff that's happened post-Breakpoint and the kind of fluff year that they've had through 2019, this could actually turn this game into something a bit more than perhaps what it looks like it is right now.
What I think they're doing is they're piggybacking on the popularity of Rainbow Six Siege.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And they're trying to make another game that people will be, oh, it's another Rainbow Six, let's buy it.
Yeah, it's a cash in.
Which is exactly what they did with Far Cry New Dawn, and that failed.
Yeah, so my question is that, can they do this like right? Because it is supposed to be quite a different thing, just with the Rainbow Six kind of paint job and mechanics and stuff. So if they can take a game like Rainbow Six, the tactical shooting and all that, which is really, really popular, change it up, make it the three-player PvE co-op experience, they could have something good on their hands if they're, having this kind of restructure and refocusing onto making, actually good games.
Yeah, we'll see.
Now, there's a handful of other smaller ones that are announced to come out, so we'll just kind of knock through these really quick. There's a game called Roller Champions, which is basically 3v3 Rocket League, but on roller skates. It does look kind of fun, but it seems like it reeks of esports bait. It's all brightly coloured, not unlike Fortnite, but I can't deny that it does look kind of fun. What doesn't look like fun is Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, which is a free-to-play mobile game, and it's basically XCOM, or like a turn-based semi-tactical shooter thing with a bunch of Tom Clancy characters, notably Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell, because there's no way in hell that franchise seems to be coming back. They've completely forgotten about it, and that's a crying shame. Another one is The Settlers, which is like a building strategy game made by the same people who do the Anno series, and then Gods and Monsters, which could be really interesting, but we don't really know anything about it other than who's making it, which is Ubisoft Quebec, who are the same people behind Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and the game kind of looks like a cross between Breath of the Wild kind of adventure and colour palette with ancient Greek mythology, which does sound quite unique and not something that a lot of people do, apart from obviously the guys at Odyssey who just did all of that. But the most exciting stuff is sort of announced or not officially confirmed, or there's no proper release dates, and one major one is a game called Skull and Bones.
It was announced 2017, and it's
long time ago.
Yes, so long ago. It's originally scheduled to launch in the fall of 2018. Now, if you know how to count, that's almost 2 years ago now. So
yep.
It's hugely delayed. It's been developed by Ubisoft Singapore, so I don't know whether they've been distracted by other projects or whatever. But it's a new IP. It's an online open world pirate game, which many hope matches the gameplay of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, because that was, in many people's opinions, one of the best pirates games out there.
It is the best Assassin's Creed game.
Review your matches free at eharmony.co.uk.
So in May in 2019, Ubisoft confirmed that the game won't launch now until the 2020-2021 fiscal year, which begins after April this year, 2020. So at some point, the game is due to come this year after April, so they say.
Yeah, but much of the good stuff is going to be post-April 2020. Now, it's meant to be a multiplayer, like, live service thing with RPG-like mechanics and damage numbers popping up over everything. Same homogenized game mechanics, and my biggest issue is that it looks like it's making similar mistakes to Anthem, in that it's a great concept undermined by the live service model. In that a pirate game where you're, navigating the high seas, even with a little bit of multiplayer would be fine, but there's all this just crap clogging up your screen, which I don't like. I just wish it was the pirate version of a game like Red Dead, like essentially a historical sim.
Absolutely, good shout, that one. And incidentally enough, it's quite funny that Hollywood Reporter magazine reported in February 2019 that Ubisoft are making a Skull and Bones TV show, and this is before the game is even finished.
Yeah.
So the TV adaptation is billed as a female-driven drama set in the lawless frontier of the Indian Ocean at the end of the golden age of piracy in the 1700s. Now, Ubisoft, they're making us a bit of a splurge. I mean, they've done the Assassin's Creed movie, they've done bits and bobs in TV, but they are actually like branching out seriously now into TV and films.
Yeah, because they're also planning a film about The Division I think it's for Netflix, starring quite big names like Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain, and it's supposed to be being directed by David Leitch, who did Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, and more recently, but less critically acclaimed, Hobbs and Shaw. Ubisoft are really pushing for this kind of space in film and TV, which is interesting. Not sure how successful it'll be because they've not got the best track record with translating games to movies. So take the Prince of Persia movie, which again had very talented Jake Gyllenhaal in the lead, only got about 6.6 on IMDb and a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes. Then even worse, as Kaz just mentioned, the Assassin's Creed movie, which got a 5.7 on IMDb and 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. So neither of those are particularly glowing CVs for the Ubisoft film branch, but those films weren't made by Ubisoft themselves with their own in-house studio, which these new projects are supposed to be under. But speaking of Assassin's Creed, that's going to be one of the most interesting things to come out of 2020 if it actually exists, because we've had a year off. Assassin's Creed Odyssey came out, I think, in 2018, and it's been long rumored that this one, if it is real, is going to take place in a sort of Viking/Norse mythology setting, and the mythology focus is in line with Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, which again both favoured mythological stuff as well as the interesting historical settings. But this has been rumoured for a long time now. Originally it was rumoured to be ancient Rome, and now it's rumoured to be Viking stuff. There's been multiple leaks. There was a recent leak which was a shop listing, but that's now believed to be fake and just someone that mocked it up on, something like Photoshop. But still, it's one of the biggest franchises Ubisoft has, and they wouldn't be the same company without Assassin's Creed. Since the first Assassin's Creed, all of their other games have either been Assassin's Creed or clones of Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Origins kind of signaled a new direction for the games, taking a more RPG style approach and less kind of stealth action. And Odyssey got between 83 and 87 on Metacritic, so it did do quite well critically, and it was supported with a lot of additional DLCs, and it fits in with their live service model, which they quite like. But then there's the question of, again, if they're having this restructuring, are they going to make this live service model even stronger, because Assassin's Creed is an easy cash cow for them. It's an easy one for them to monetize and pretty much get guaranteed money on. But if they can keep what they're saying and give people time, they could make Assassin's Creed really good again, because I've dodged the last two because they've not really interested me with all this RPG light mechanics, trying to be something it's sort of not really, kind of half-arsing it. But if you do want some more Assassin's Creed content coming up soon, there's an audiobook coming out in February. There's an audiobook. Awesome. And then there's the long story development of Beyond Good and Evil 2, and there is still no release date on that, and I doubt that it will make 2020, but that looks to be one of the most ambitious games around. So if they can, again, take this extra development time that they're thinking, so that the different development studios can give these games the innovations that they're trying to do, that actually sounds really good for this game, because if they're trying to rush it to meet the end of this generation, it's just not going to work, because it's all about, a huge open universe. Think this in a similar vein to something like No Man's Sky, but much smaller and kind of just better.
Yeah, and I think nothing kind of sums up how Ubisoft are thinking about games right now in the wake of the disaster, which was Breakpoint, more than the fact that they reportedly cancelled an unannounced game that was being developed at Ubisoft Montreal, and they were working on it for 3 years, and they've decided to cancel it apparently. And this is inside information. Graphics programmer Louis de Caroufal from the studio tweeted confirming it, and Jason Schreier posted on Reset Area saying, yeah, just a cancelled new IP by Watch Dogs team. I heard it was Destiny-like, lots of big changes at Ubisoft. So this just highlights how they're shifting their focus away and diverting resources onto their current games, because this game, although they've been working on for 3 years, they decided to just ditch it because in all likelihood, if they've got too many pots on the boil, if you like, then they're not going to meet that crucial end of generation deadline which they've got, and they'll have to put more development time into porting their old games onto the new platforms, which they don't necessarily want to do. So this new kind of refocus, which Egamo kind of insinuated a couple of months ago, I think it's good all round. Whether they'll deliver, whether they'll improve the games, whether they'll innovate and not just reverberate their games, is yet to be seen.
That's the thing with Ubisoft. They're in such a great position because they're one of the biggest companies in the world. Why are you making all your games the same? You have so much amazing talent to do lots of different things. You can keep your games as a service type thing with The Division, with your monetization, do all that, and then take your single player stuff and do like Assassin's Creed, or then do some new projects and try new things with games like Watch Dogs, trying something really original, recruiting a million different people. That sounds really cool.
It sounds cool, but it's made by Ubisoft,
exactly.
So you know exactly how it's going to play.
That's the problem. They're all the same.
It's just marketing gimmicks. It's just words. Oh yeah, you can recruit all these people. The gameplay is going to be generic and bland, cookie cutter. You know it.
We're certainly trying to be hopeful for Ubisoft's future in the year 2020, but we are definitely skeptical. So let us know down in the comments if there's any games that you think would really, reinvent them as a company for you and re-inspire your faith in them. What about a game like Splinter Cell? I'd love a new Splinter Cell, but I'm not very confident that that's going to happen. Make sure to let us know down in the comments. Leave a like, hit subscribe and the bell. You know what to do. Go on over to patreon.com/prettygoodgaming to support the content we create. I've been Henry. He's been Gaz. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.